please rise for the mourners?
Shiviti Adonai Lenegdi Tamid Kimimini Valemot Nat Lachen Samach Libi Al Kivodi Af Besari, Ishkon lavetach, Ki ta'azov nafshi lishol, Lo titen chasitecha, lirot, shachat, Todi'eni orachaim savas machot et panecha neimot miminecha
Brachim Habaim, blessings and welcome to those who come to celebrate the life and commemorate the death of Henry Butler. Adonai Natan B'Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarach. The eternal is given, the eternal is taken. Blessed is the name of the eternal. Before we begin and really look around, it is incredible that a life of 102 years remains so full that we're all here to celebrate him. I'm Rabbi Ruth Slotnick. I am joined by my rabbinic colleagues, Jason Levine and Dana Benson. And as we were joking with the family earlier, it's not many people who warrant 3 rabbis, but Henry is a generational role model, a true tzaddik, as we were saying, a person who taught us how to live a faithful Jewish life. So we as a congregation, we as a Jewish community here in Seattle, we mourn the loss of our leader and our teacher, Henry Butler, almost exactly just a little more than 2 years after he lost his beloved Olga of blessed memory. But for his circle of loved ones, Henry was simply a father, a grandfather, a friend, the consistent heartbeat at the center of their world. And so our hearts are with his entire inner circle of loved ones, especially his sons, Ron and Steve, his daughters in love, Debbie and Karen, his grandsons, Eric and Gil, and his beloved friend and caregiver, Kristen. We begin with Rabbi Jason offering the words of Psalm 23, words that have comforted mourners throughout the millennia.
We read in this psalm, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I will fear no harm, for you are with me. The loss of a beloved is like entering a deep valley, cut off from the bright sunlight, a gloomy and dark place. No road of life can possibly detour around this valley. Sooner or later, we all walk through it. But the psalmist wisely used the figure of speech of a valley to describe this experience. For a valley is open on both sides. Having entered into it, we're not to make it our permanent place. Rather, after we have lingered there a while, we walk out into the bright sunshine of life. With the loss of our dear beloved Henry, we were plunged into the valley of grief and despair. Yet his memories have left us and opened for us to be able to traverse that valley of grief and emerge once again into the sunshine of life. Adonai ra'i v'lo echsar. If you know the words of Psalm 23 in English, you're welcome to join with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Feshavti bebeit Adonai, lo orech yami.
It's an honor now to invite Henry's daughters-in-law, Debbie and Karen. Debbie will be offering a reading from Kohelet, the ancient Hebrew poetry, and Karen will be reading a poem by Marge Piercy, modern Hebrew poetry translated into English.
L'chol zman ve'et, l'chol chefetz tachat hashamayim. A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven. Et laledet ve'et lamut, et lata'at, ve'et la'akor natua. A time for being born and a time for dying, a time for planting and a time for uprooting the planted. Et laharog ve'et lirpo, et livchotz ve'et livnot. A time for slaying and a time for healing, a time for tearing down and a time for building up. Et livchot ve'et lischok. Et sfod ve'et rakod. A time for weeping and a time for laughing, a time for wailing and a time for dancing. Et lahashlich avanim ve'et kenot avanim et lachavok ve'et lirchok mechabak. A time for throwing stones and a time for gathering stones, a time for embracing and a time for shunning embraces. Et levakesh ve'et la'abed, et lishmor ve'et lahashlich. A time for seeking and a time for losing, a time for keeping and a time for discarding. Et litchoa ve'et litpor, et lachashot ve'et ledaber, a time for ripping and a time for sewing, a time for silence and a time for speaking. Et lahov ve'et lisno, et milchama ve'et shalom, a time for loving and a time for hating, a time for war and a time for peace. Look around us. Here.
Look around us, search above us, below, behind. We stand in a great web of being joined together. Let us praise, let us love the life we are lent, passing through us in the body of Israel. In our own bodies, let us say, Amen. Time flows through us like water. The past and the dead speak through us. We breathe out our children's children blessing. Blessed is the earth from which we grow. Blessed the life we are lent. Blessed the ones who teach us. Blessed the ones we teach. Blessed is the word we cannot say, the glory, that shines through us and remains to shine, flowing past distant suns on the way to forever. Let us say, Amen. Blessed is the light, blessed is darkness, but blessed above all else is peace, which bears the fruits of knowledge on strong branches. Let us say, Amen. Peace that bears joy into the world, peace that enables love, peace over Israel everywhere. Blessed and holy peace. Holy is peace. Let us say, Amen. Thank you.
Henry would so appreciate the preservation of Hebrew. What beautiful readings. Thank you. And in that passage from Ecclesiastes, from Kohelet, it says, there's a time to be silent and a time to speak, and now is the time to speak of Henry and of his extraordinary journey in this life. And to do so, I invite three of his beloveds, his son Ron, his grandson Gil, and then his son Steve. Ron?
A good life, well lived. At 102, one can say of Dad, a good life lived well and long. A remarkable characteristic of Dad was how oblivious he was of the impression he made on others. And with his longevity, his imprint was far-ranging. At trade shows we attended together, I often was his scout, who, when observing someone approaching him and knew a warm high Henry was imminent, would whisper the name to him. The predicament for him, there were just too many casual acquaintances to remember. In the High Holiday Prayer Book is a wonderful meditation that begins, birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey. What an amazing interval Dad had. What I've always thought to myself is Dad is the most genuine religious person I know. His authenticity was not defined by a role. It just permeated his being. Dad's life was anchored in Judaism's rich teachings, in community participation, but also welcoming each day with brief ritual. Jewish belief permeated all aspects of his journey without being visibly apparent. There's a Yiddish word which is quite well known, mensch, and that refers to someone who has integrity and has a sense of what is right and responsible. That was Dad in his entire business career, which was an extraordinarily successful one. Early on, customers trusted Dad with writing up orders based on his observations of their inventory. And customers' loyalty to him was particularly evident when in a 6-week period, he switched an entire product segment in the Pacific Northwest market from one supplier to another. His livelihood was on the line. His business exploits continued as he established his namesake Henry Butler Company. He had an eye for introducing new vendors into the multi-state market area he represented. He was a trailblazer nationally for combining company representation with warehousing their products. Dad also made a wise choice in proposing to Mom. When their joint journey began in 1947, they were like the early astronauts, heading to a destination unknown and prospects uncertain. Yet over time, step by step, they prospered as a couple and independently too. Without a manual, they were well versed in the art of looking ahead with conviction and in sync about not letting the unfamiliar hold them back. Solid decisions always. And they were great in making sincere, lasting friendships and impressions and contributions as your presence honors. Thank you for being here. Yesterday, I was perusing Dad's emails, and here are a few that bring me a smile in remembrance. June 2020, to Darren at the Mirabella. Used to be able to scan documents from computer to printer. Now doesn't work. Why? Any help will be appreciated. January 2021, from Kaiser. Your account is locked out. May 2021, from niece Amy. I think you replied to me, but the email I received didn't have a message. And recently, on October 25th, to Minna Miller of Music of Remembrance, sorry I missed your speech. Know it was a good one. Did not feel well enough to listen to you. And that last comment brings another smile. Dad always told his Kaiser primary care physician everything was fine when she inquired, remarking, it's not so easy being 102. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey. We see that victory lies not in some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. For all of Tuesday night, after Debbie, Gil, and Karen left, Steve and I, along with Kristen, were at Dad's bedside. Only after Steve and I stepped away as sunrise was occurring Wednesday did Dad take his last breath. In that final moment, he told us, without speaking, that from this new day onward, we could no longer now be with him on his journey. A little solace for me is imagining that he will catch up somewhere, sometime with Mom, his companion of 74 years, who he missed dearly. That it was at this time of year, 2 years ago that she left us. Just maybe it was her voice telling him that this was the time to leave, too. I really miss him. Bishalom, in peace, Dad.
I'm Gil, youngest grandson of Henry and Olga Butler, and younger brother to Eric Butler. Up until the last few years, we were in the very small, lucky group of people that in our 30s still had 4 living grandparents. After my grandma Olga's passing just over 2 years ago, things were definitely different, but we were still so happy to have Grandpa Henry around. Grandpa Henry never stopped amazing me. He found the fountain of youth, continuing to swim laps up until around his 100th year. Seeing that inspired me to sign up for adult swim lessons to improve my abilities in hopes that I too can live past 100. Even after taking countless classes, my grandpa was still a much better swimmer than me. And if there was a swim race between 32-year-old Gil and 102-year-old grandpa, and you put your bets on me winning, you would have certainly lost your money. Even one time when grandpa was in the hospital, it was never what you would expect. Around 4 years ago when I was out of town, my girlfriend Lynn went with my Uncle Ron to visit him, with her expecting to see someone in a critical, unresponsive state. Instead, she reported finding him, fully alert, sitting on the edge of the hospital bed, desperately trying to figure out how to change the channels on the television. With full youthful energy, he turned to greet his visitors as if it were a normal day at the house. On the subject of greetings, if you ever called Grandpa Henry's house phone after 5 p.m. on any given day, you could always count on him answering the phone with a chipper, "Good evening." It's those little things that I will miss. Grandpa Henry was always someone that would make the best of everything and found a way to find something to be positive about, even when times were tough. Hearing his story of immigration always inspired me, and even though he was so young when he left Germany, he kept parts of that culture alive, occasionally incorporating seemingly random words to me in German. He would end almost every time spent together with "mach's gut," or "be well." I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. Grandpa, my life will not be the same without you in it. I know I was spoiled to have you as long as I did, but it doesn't make it any easier to say goodbye. However, since I have no choice, I will reluctantly say, goodbye, Grandpa, mach's gut.
Steve.
My father was our family historian. 5 years ago, after my parents had updated their wills, he wrote this note. We reflect on our life with gratitude for the stages we have experienced, from a secure childhood to this point when we look back some 90-plus years. Born in Germany, but fortunately escaping before the Holocaust, and settling in the USA, starting a new life. It was our good fortune to find a loving partner and to celebrate many anniversaries up to this time. With Ron and Steve, we created the next generation, followed by our grandchildren, Eric and Gil. Together with our sons' spouses, Karen and Debbie, we are lucky to enjoy a warm family relationship. While we are not signing off at this time, it is our hope that close family relationships will continue even without us. Only this morning, I saw and reread an earlier version of my dad's history that he wrote after Gil's bar mitzvah in 2003, and it provides more details. Here are excerpts from 2 pivotal times in his life. He wrote, I was born in Würzburg on August 9, 1921, as the only child of Herman and Lily Buxbaum. Both sets of grandparents, uncles, aunts, and cousins also lived in Würzburg, and we celebrated birthdays and holidays in a large family circle. After Hitler came to power, growing anti-Semitism in Würzburg prompted the family to move to Frankfurt and to make plans to leave Germany. About this, my dad wrote, "Frankfurt obviously was only a temporary solution, and all efforts were made to secure an affidavit of support from somebody in the United States, which was necessary to get a visa for immigrating. Luckily, a brother of my mother's aunt provided that for me, and I was able to leave Germany on the SS New York on June 16, 1938. My mother accompanied me to Hamburg and saw me off, not knowing if and when we would see each other again. It so happened that my father was in England on one of his regular business trips and was able to visit me on our ship anchored outside Southampton. When my dad returned from his military service as a Ritchie boy, his job with the Brillo Company took him to San Francisco, which he called a fortunate move, since it was there that he met a young woman named Olga Meyer. Here's what he wrote. Olga, from now on Ollie, and I had our first date on February 1st, 1947, and it did not take long for me to know that she was the girl I wanted to marry. After introducing her to my parents and family in Los Angeles over the July 4th weekend, we got engaged on the way to Wilshire Temple and planned our wedding for the fall. However, as I gladly accepted the offer from Brillo to become their distributor representative for the Pacific Northwest, our wedding date was advanced to August 8th, 1947. We were married in the studio of Rabbi Saul White in the presence of parents, uncles, and aunts, and following a lovely dinner in Ollie's parents' home, we took off on a combined honeymoon and moved up north. In our family, it was a birthday tradition for Dad to mark each milestone with a wonderful poem about our achievements and his and Mom's hopes for the future. In turn, his birthdays were an occasion for my mom, Ron, and me to celebrate his life journey, although I did not do so in verse. On his 80th birthday, I said to Dad, "Distinctive memories from my childhood revolve around Shabbat dinners filled with laughter, chess and Scrabble, swimming at View Ridge, fabulous vacations, and much more. In your sphere, you succeeded in business, you took care of your parents, you nurtured your lifetime relationship with Mom, and you demonstrated your passion for Temple Beth Am and Jewish learning. In fact, in the early days of a much smaller congregation, I always heard praise for the new rabbi when you led services." 15 years later, on his 95th birthday, I tried to capture what I thought were some of his special traits, which included your smile that welcomes people and makes us feel at ease, your voice that expresses joy, kindness, and support, your touch, whether a hug, a kiss, or a handshake, that greets everyone in warm embrace, your curiosity to keep learning about the world, coupled with your perplexity when new phones and computers don't work quite as you think they should, your determination to stay active with daily swimming and walking, your generosity and loyalty to your family and friends, your sense of wonder in seeing life as an ongoing journey. Earlier this year, on his 102nd birthday, I once again tried to express my admiration with these words. I'm thinking of how you came to this country alone, found work at a photography store a few days after arriving in New York at the age of 16, served with distinction as a Ritchie boy, moved with Brillo to California and Seattle, started a successful business, created a wonderful circle of friends, became a leader of Temple Beth Am, supported community organizations, and traveled to interesting places around the world. And now I hear that you have celebrity status at Mirabella. And here's what I would say to my dad if I still could. I know that you were ready for your life to end. The traditional blessing of living to 120 was not what you had in mind. You felt that 102 years were enough. Yet what a life it has been. You did create the next generation of close family relationships that were so important to you. Eric is here from New York, and Gil is here from California. Our cousins are here from Oregon and California. And we have the support of your many friends and all the people who admired you. You continued to enrich my life and Debbie's, and Eric's and Gil's, and Ron and Karen's, to your very last day. We will miss your companionship, your warmth, your kindness, your smile. We will love you forever. I am today, as I've been my whole life, so lucky that you are my dad.
All three speakers, thank you. What an incredible legacy Henry leaves behind. The older I get, the more I have come to realize that one of the great marks of the genius of the Jewish tradition is how we sanctify memory, zikaron in Hebrew. Our lives are fleeting, even if you live to 102. Yet the days we are alive have meaning because our very presence makes an impact on everyone we know and on all creation. That's why Jewish tradition raises up a well-lived life as the greatest blessing of all, a blessing that flourishes through time and space, through the act of memory. For we Jews, to remember is an act of love, a dynamic experience weaving the past into the present moment to make way for the future. Like those lines of love that Steve just described, generation to generation. And so rather than sharing another description of the incredible arc of Henry's life, I want to encourage everyone here and who may be watching truly to go to the Holocaust Center for Humanity's website to hear and see Henry's story in detail. Olga's story is there too, as are several other Temple Beth Am members who survived the lead up to and the experience of the Shoah, more and more of whom are of blessed memory. There you will learn the historic achievements of Henry's life, some of which we heard this morning, and they are historic, from escaping Germany before Kristallnacht to navigating 1940s New York City as a 16-year-old immigrant, to joining the Ritchie Boys and serving his newfound country and helping in the victory in the war, to sweeping up his brand new bride and settling with her into the Pacific Northwest, becoming a founding couple of Seattle's growing Jewish community, not just here in the North End, but throughout the region. Instead of doing a eulogy that would demarcate each of those, I want to share a video. And I fear that Henry, ever the traditionalist, might have, I fear what he might have thought about my sharing a video at his funeral, but I believe he would forgive me. I know Olga would. I shared, she loved when we tried new things. So in fact, my very first meeting of them was meeting them online at a dinner during my interview process. And Olga pointed a finger at me and said, "Try new things." And Henry said, So in this video, and I believe that Henry, who by the time this video was shown, we showed it during the High Holy Day services of October 2020. We were in lockdown and our services were all online at the time. And I believe Henry's memory was already beginning to go. And I suspect the notes that you just read for us, Steve, was what he was reading off of. So some of the information will be doubled. But I had the great privilege of interviewing Henry for this brief video. Rosh Hashanah, as you might know, is also called Yom HaZikaron, our day of remembrance, because every new year, every new beginning begins with memory, begins with this act of looking behind so that we can live presently and build our way towards the future. So here is a brief interview with Henry Butler on the subject of Zikaron, of memory. Hi, Henry.
Hi, Rose. Nice to see you.
Oh my gosh, you're a sight for sore eyes. It's great to see you too. Can you tell us where you grew up, where you were born, and where you spent your earliest High Holy Days?
Right. Well, I was born in Germany, in Würzburg. A community had one major synagogue, which was Orthodox, and observed always 2 days. I used to go to Shabbat services every Saturday with my grandparents, first with one grandpa to the synagogue, and with another grandpa we would leave.
You know, I have to tell you, Henry, the image of seeing you go to shul with one grandfather and leave shul with another grandfather is such a beautiful image.
That was the story in Würzburg. I left in 1937. For 1 year we lived in Frankfurt because conditions had gone pretty badly under the Hitler time. And Frankfurt had a large Jewish community. It was somewhat better, but of course, in the long run, nothing was any good in Germany at that time. And I left for the United States in June of 1938. So,
Hi, Olga.
Oh, you know this lady, but she's leaving. Yeah, she does not want to be seen.
We'll just let her go in peace. She
Yeah.
got her 15 minutes of fame. We are exploring the idea of remembering, because one of the pieces of the shofar service is zikronot, or remembering. And I have to tell you, Henry, that you are a major piece of many people's memory of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur at Temple Beth Am. Every year I get a request, will Henry Butler read Unatana Tokef again? And
I haven't, but it was time for somebody else to have the honor of doing that. Right.
So you just celebrated your 99th birthday. How are you going to celebrate turning 100?
I hate to make long-term plans at this point, and I'll wait till we get there.
Okay.
Then I'll let you know.
Okay. And I just I want your permission to be able to celebrate with you. I know Temple Beth Am's going to want to celebrate with you.
Thanks very much.
He didn't make long-term plans. When I asked in that video about his prayer leadership on the High Holy Days, you'll notice that Henry said it was time for someone else to do the honor, and he meant it. For Henry to live Jewishly, keeping alive the memory of our ancestors through prayer and learning and community engagement, that was an honor. And he was a true tzaddik, a righteous role model and teacher to us all. Henry, we will keep alive the memory of you and all you held dear through our actions, through our stories, through our sanctifying of your memory. You have been our teacher in what it means to live a full life, a life whose memory is a blessing. And so once again, I share those closing words of Psalm 23, verses remembered and recited throughout 2.5 millennia, in whose words I think we see the breadth and the depth of Henry Butler's life. You spread a table before me in full view of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup runs over. Only goodness and steadfast love shall pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in this house of Adonai for the length of my days. Amen. We'll take some time in silence to celebrate the life and commemorate the death of Henry Butler. Eternal God, creator of all life, you give the gift of your Spirit, and we are formed. You take it in return, and we turn to dust. We are grateful for the many blessings in Henry Butler's life. We now turn to you, seeking comfort and light. Harachaman, compassionate one, grant us solace and strength. Reinforce our faith, for you are our rock and redeemer. And let us say, Amen. Please rise.
El male rachamim, shochen babromim, hamtzem rucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina, im kedoshim utehorim, kezohar harakia mazirim. Et nishmat chaim ben Naftali Alevi, shehalach leolamo. Ba'al harachamim, yastireu beseter knafav leolamim. Bitzror hachaim et nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato, Adonai hu nachalato, Adonai hu nachalato, ve'anuach v'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen.
El Malei Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, the soul of Henry Butler, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. This concludes our service of memorial of Henry Butler. The mourners will be exiting out this way. We'll ask that you hold off on leaving until they've exited. And you can have, there's directions to the burial site outside, and as well as information about Shiva at Steve and Debbie's home from 7 to 9:30, and it will be on Zoom as well. Thank you all.
We invite you now to either continue with us at Gan Shalom or to continue to commemorate Henry in your own way. L'shalom lechaim, to peace and to life. Thank you.